Hello and welcome everyone. This is the Sunday Night All Things Natural Net. This is an amateur radio net hosted over the Overlook Mountain Amateur Radio Repeater, and specifically regarding farming, nutrition, ecology, and the like. So for those who don't know, amateur radio is basically kind of like CB, but has a much larger range and a much larger group of people and requires a federal license. But it is a hobby radio system basically. And so I run what's called the Sunday Night All Things Natural Net here on the Overlook Mountain Amateur Radio Repeater here in the Hudson Valley in upstate New York. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I hope that that's a general explanation that will help you understand what we're doing. You'll see as things go along how it works. Meanwhile, I have to get this net started because I'm about a minute late. This is KD2IIN Net Control for the Sunday Night All Things Natural Net. The Sunday Night All Things Natural Net is an amateur radio net provided to the Overlook Mountain Amateur Radio community and the greater Hudson Valley area via the Overlook Mountain Amateur Radio Club repeater. If you want to join the net, you'll need to be tuned into 146.805 megahertz with a negative shift of 600 kilohertz and a PL tone of 103.5. This net, of course, will break for any emergency or priority traffic. This net is primarily around farming, gardening, and good ecology, but the scope of our topics often go quite wider than that. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get the net started. KD2IIN Net Control, we are looking for check-ins for the Sunday Night All Things Natural Net. Watch it be a dead night. My good friend Ken. No doubt, cup of chai in hand. Probably on the back porch because it's raining. Alright, the net recognizes KD2TQS. Ken, I'm guessing you've got a cup of chai and you're on the back porch tonight because it's raining. I can't imagine you're out having a campfire. But who knows, maybe you're a trooper like me and you go out and do one in the rain anyway. How are you this evening? Welcome YTFP, Kristen Lee, Lisa Hopkins, Conrad.
Not raining in Rhinebeck anyways, but once a little rain, that would stop.
Geeky Gardens and Kristen Lee, and I think I got everybody, anybody I missed. Anyway, welcome. Yes, the rain has sort of passed, but boy is it wet out there. Anyway, welcome to the net, good to hear you. What's going on in your world today?
Gotta say, I came across an article which is phenomenal, and I've already texted it to my friends, including my friends in Australia, where this animal happens to live. Wow! Can't wait to tell the kids. New study just out proves that platypuses glow in the dark.
Oh, really? Wow. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? We'll do another opportunity for check-ins shortly. It seems like a slow start night, so go ahead and elaborate on that a little more if you could. I did not realize that they glowed in the dark. I do understand that there is a tremendous amount of study work that's been done in them, but I'm going to defer back to you because you have a lot more knowledge in that area than I do. Hey, Stone Habit.
But before I do that, I just get a signals report testing out a new condition and wondering how things are coming. You're a bit scratchy once in a while, and that could be due to what I'm trying. Over to you.
Yes, your signal is not horrible, but there is a little bit of scratch on it here and there, but it is audible. Your audio is a bit low, but I think that's typical. I think you're running an HT, and sometimes you can't control the mic gain on that. But overall, you're legible. If you could get a little bit cleaner signal, that would be great. But if you can't, you're certainly understandable. KD2I, and back to you.
Copy that. Change my position. How's my signal now?
Much better. Much improved. Much better.
Copy. I suspected there would be issue, and I said, heck, as long as I'm on the net, let me check. So now I will be moving to the back porch to be free from that other interfering effect. then they looked into it and got some others from a museum zoo. This and that, and exposed them to the UV light. And it's that frequency of UV light, they glow in the dark, sort of like under a black light. And that's the gist of the story. Just another amazing fact about one of the world's most weirdest and amazing animals. But it's just like, really? Because there's only two others that glow in the dark, two other mammals. So that's the gist. Back to you.
Very interesting, and I'll have to check that out. You said that it was on Gizmodo, and also, could you give us the other two animals that glow, the other two mammals that glow in the dark? That would be great.
No, I can give you one of them. One of them, surprisingly, is a flying squirrel. Flying squirrels apparently glow in the dark. The other is a common mammal, also. Yet at the same time, they say there's only two. But then they list that echinacea, no, not echinacea, it's the plant echinacea, I believe, the Australian hedgehog type thing, also has a subset that glows. But I don't recall, but one is a flying squirrel, that I know.
Very interesting. And I have a comment here in the YouTube chat from YTFP Chris. He says, many sites reporting on a quick platypus glow in the dark in Google brought up many results. So that's very interesting, and that hedgehog thing in Australia sounds interesting. And flying squirrels, I was definitely unaware of that, and I'm surprised I never observed that, because I've actually had a tremendous amount of experience with flying squirrels. When I was a kid, we had cut down a tree doing some logging up in the Catskills and mistakenly taken down a flying squirrel nest, and we actually raised them from babies, and that was a whole interesting thing. That's a much longer story and all. But and then later on, when I was in my teens, I was on the town of Red Hook highway department as a wingman, and I would get called out at 2, 3, 4 in the morning in the wintertime, and we'd turn on the floodlights and we'd see flying squirrels jumping from tree to tree doing their flying thing. I always really loved observing them and watching them. But I never did notice the glow-in-the-dark thing, so that's very interesting. Anyway, excellent start to the net. Let's go ahead and see if there's any further check-ins, and then we'll rock back through rotation. This is KD2IIN Net Control for the Sunday Night All Things Natural Net. Looking for any further check-ins, please call now. Thank you, Geeky. KD2RFI. Wow, he's staticky. Oh. Pretty sure that was Bob. Sorry for the blowing your eardrums out, people. We don't have a fantastic audio control over radio. Alright, I think that was KD2RFI, but you are very staticky tonight. Maybe check your power levels or antenna position. Gotcha. Okay, KD2UEN Bill, along with Zena, his wife, KD2UEO. Fantastic. You are checked in, and we'll just look for any further check-ins, and then we'll roll back through the rotation. All right, so any further check-ins, please call now. Slow night tonight. I think everybody went to bed early with the rain. No, actually, this is a Yaesu FT2800. All right, no further check-ins recognized at this time. What do you think about that platypus thing, Bill? Hey, Bill. And hello, Drake, by the way. very good, Bill. Well, we only got about 10% of that due to the signal quality issue tonight, but sounds like you're going to get the UV light out and see what you can get on flying squirrels. So I'll be curious to hear what your results are with that on a future net or something. Anyway, let's roll back up to KD2 TQS. Ken.
One thing I will say, I only discovered this about an hour ago, let's say. Gizmodo is not a scientific website, it's a rag magazine, if you will. So accuracy is questionable, but everything I read seems spot on. The magazine of origin is Mammalia, which is a scientific journal. I have not read the scientific aspect of it. But like I say, Gizmodo's reporting on it was a very humorous, spot-on aspect that was quite funny to read. So I don't know that it's the American flying a squirrel. I don't know if there's one in Australia. They just said flying squirrel, and not enough information to back it up.
No subspecies specified.
Back to them.
All right, KD2 IIN net control for the Sunday night All Things Natural Net. Okay, and that came originally from Amelia. Yeah, I know I've come across the Gizmodo site a few times with other stuff. I don't recall what for, but they were, more obscure articles, and I found it was nice to just find a place that would discuss some of these things that some of the more mainstream stuff just won't even look at. And that Mammalia journal sounds like more of a scientific thing, so we'll have to check that out. I assume that's Mammalia as in Mamillia as in, let's see, Mike Alpha Mike India Lima India Alpha.
I heard two different spellings, but I know that it's linked in the Gizmodo article. So you just Google Gizmodo,
which DT shared above,
and platypus will take you right to the article.
All right, very good. I'm very fortunate. I have some good mods in here, and he shared that Gizmodo article, so I'll pull that up and then jump over to the other link from it at some point. Anyway, fantastic, and that's really interesting. Thanks for sharing that with us. I was not aware of that. I know you and I have briefly touched on the subject of Bigfoot, and that is certainly an interesting conversation. Actually, I want to mention, while we're talking about obscure animals, so to speak, I'm aware of that. There was a video uploaded today by a YouTube channel, Bob Gimlin, Gymlan, showing some video of an actual Bigfoot, or what is believed to be an actual Bigfoot, and discussing it from as an objective a standpoint as possible. So for those who are interested or who don't believe, maybe go check that out and see what you think of it after watching that video. Anyway, let's roll on down and see if Bill's back in here, KD2UEN. Maybe your signal is cleaned up a bit, and then we'll pause and do another opportunity for check-ins. This is KD2 IIN Net Control for the Sunday night All Things Natural Net.
KD2UEN, the signal reporter, CJ?
Yes, much better. Oh, and I meant to respond to Ken as well. Ken, your signal was solid last time. But yeah, much better, Bill. You're pretty clean now.
Yeah, we were bothered with a little QRN here, weather-related.
Thank you, DT.
Actually, horizontal with the radio now, so we've got some horizontal polarization. But I'm glad it's better. Yeah, the platypus thing is kind of neat. I never knew they flew in the dark, but that was pretty interesting. And flying squirrels, very, very interesting. Back to you, CJ.
All right, very good. Yeah, I'm going to have to look more into the flying squirrel side of things, since that's something I can directly observe around here from time to time. I haven't seen any in recent years, but I think just being up here on the farm rather than down in the woods where the trees are taller is a factor in that. And I know I have seen them here on this farm, so I'll have to dig into that some more. All right, let's just pause here and do another opportunity for check-ins. This is KD2 IIN Net Control for the Sunday night All Things Natural Net. Looking for any further check-ins? Please call now. Everybody went to bed. Rainy and cold out there. All right, no further check-ins at this time. Looks like everybody's resting in the rain. All right, we'll roll back up to KD2 TQS. Ken.
Copy that. Gonna try a quick radio ad or cell phone ad and cell phone ad. Can you hear me now? I'm about to switch position.
We got you. We got you.
Can you hear me now? Any difference in signal quality?
No discernible difference from my end, no.
Good enough for that. Just like I say, playing something enough of that on other stuff. One thing to keep in mind on this, they listed the specific frequency wavelength of the UV light needed to see it in the platypus. And one thing I would say is the platypus has been observed at great length. It's one of the weirdest animals studied at length. And they never seen this before, and it was coincidentally discovered by other researchers doing a technique on other people or other things they were studying. So probably you wouldn't see it in flying squirrels because it's not that specific frequency of light. Otherwise, everybody would know it by now. So that's just one factor that reading an article from a rag magazine that I get thinking about. I'm going, it could be very unique situations, such as has it filtered underwater with the light coming through. Or whatever. Talking too long. You got the gist of this. Back to you.
Very interesting. Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up. I know there's an instrument called the somatoscope, which is basically a dark field microscopy microscope that specifically uses the ultraviolet spectrum, and under it you can actually observe live blood samples and live blood cultures, and it's a very different perspective of blood culture on microscope slides compared to like a dried blood sample. Way more information there to observe, so very interesting. All right, let's roll on down to Bill, KD2UEN, and adjust audio.
Hey, thanks, CJ. A quick question, and this is a different topic, but tonight, the Christmas cactus. Do you know anything about getting blooms on a Christmas cactus?
I don't. I assume you're referring to a poinsettia?
No, this is a cacti. It's they call it a Christmas cactus, and I just didn't know if you knew anything about them. We want to find out how to make it bloom. So Sally and I were both curious about that. Didn't mean to change topic, but we wanted to get that one in tonight.
All right, very good. I did find it in Google, and there is an article that came up in top results under goodhousekeeping.com, of all places, how to care for a Christmas cactus indoors. So you may look at that. I would say it's probably going to go back to I did find it, as well as light cycle, although I don't know that much about cacti, so I'm sorry I can't answer that question specifically for you. But you know, that's a good place to start, is Google, and then look into what's involved in caring for them. And I'm sure one of those articles somewhere will discuss, you know, how to go about getting them to flower, what environmental conditions and nutrient conditions they like for flowering. Most plants they require a specific environment and nutrient profile for a good flower one of the production. So that's something to consider. All right, let's pause for a moment here and do another opportunity for check-ins. This is KD2IIN Net Control. Looking for any further check-ins for this Sunday night, all things natural net.
W2RWS, Rob in Pine Plains.
All right, the net recognizes W2RWS, Rob in Pine Plains. How are you this evening?
Very well. Rainy, wet evening. My dog wants to stay in and not go out. Any specific subject you guys are talking about? Because I do have a question.
Well, we were talking about platypus and the fact that they actually glow in the dark or are capable of doing so on certain light frequencies. And then we were talking about flying squirrels and a few other mammals that have similar properties. And then, let's see, Bill was asking about Christmas cactus and how to go about making those flower. And that brings us up to date. But you're certainly welcome to introduce another subject. By all means, go ahead. I'll put it back to you.
Well, I did have a Christmas cactus. It was 3 plants in one. I made a huge one, and I loved it very much until COVID hit, and I left it in Manhattan for 7 weeks without water.
Oh.
But I got to tell you, every year, faithfully, it flowered. I didn't do anything to it. I did bupkis to it, and I don't know how it did it. I didn't put it in the dark. I didn't do all that stuff. I did nothing, and it flowered. I have a question for you. My truck decided, I accidentally left the parking lights on for 20 minutes, and my battery went dead. And I was in the middle of Red Hook, and I walked into Williams, and I bought a Die-Hard battery pack. Hey, I'll let it drop a second.
Thank you, YT.
Now,
Thank you,
this is a
Geeky.
tiny little pocket-size lithium-ion power pack that jump starts with 600 amps.
Yep.
Huh? I don't get this. So I walked in the store and I said, look, dude, if this isn't going to work, I'm going to bring it back. How do I know it's got a charge in the box? And we checked it, and it had a 97% charge in the box. So I went and jumped in my truck, and son of a gun, it worked, and I decided to keep it. So my question is, how is this thing wired that it gets so many amps at a moment's notice? Is there a capacitor in there? That's my question.
Well, without having actually torn one of those apart, I don't know. I can't speak on that, with good authority. I don't have good information on it. But what I will say is, it's probably just because it's a battery. I don't know if you know it or not, but batteries are rated in, as people are used to, they're rated either in cold cranking amps or in amp hours, which is usually based on a 20-hour discharge rate. But like if you take a battery that'll do 40 amp hours or, might touch 250, 300 cold cranking amps, if you short that battery out, you can actually pull easily over 1,000 amps out of it, and you can deplete all of the energy in that battery in a very short period of time. Of course, that usually ends in a destructive event like explosion or flaming orange molten metal. But my guess is because that's a lithium-ion battery, it's probably able to deliver all that charge very quickly. That said, you're not going to get a very long period out of that. You probably get a couple of cranks out of that, and you're about done, just given the size of the pack. But that would be my 2 cents on it. And I just want to go back to the Christmas cacti thing here. I had a comment from one of my mods and one of my participants here on the YouTube channel. YTFP Chris says, Christmas cactus requires at least 12 hours of darkness at night in order to encourage bud development. So we'll go back to that shortly, but I want to put it back to Rob, W2RWS, for further comment. This is KD2IIN, control for the Sunday night, all things natural. Blah, 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 blah.
So let me ask you something. If I power a ham radio with this thing, obviously I don't need the instantaneous 600 amp peak, but I'm not going to blow anything out if I hook it up on the 12 volts clips.
No.
The radio will take what it needs.
Hello, Vicky.
I'm not forcing that starting amperage into my radio. Is that correct?
Correct. It all goes back to Ohm's law, and resistance will dictate how much power flows through a DC circuit, just like inductance will dictate how much power can flow through an AC circuit. And then, of course, voltage, resistance, and amperage all have a direct relationship to each other. So, your radio will only pull as much power as it needs, unless, of course, a component fries out, and then the current draw may cliff upwards quickly. But no, as long as you're on the same voltage input, it shouldn't be a problem. I would not expect a long operating life out of that. And I don't know, I'm pretty sure lithium-ion batteries can be fully discharged without a memory, like the older NiCads or some of the older, flooded lead acids and stuff. But I don't know, give it a try. I'd be curious to see how what kind of operating time it gives you and what you get out of it.
K2BHM.
All right, the net recognizes K2BHM. We're going to go to K2BHM Jim. You were checked into the net, and I'm sure you have a comment on lithium-ion batteries and the topic at hand, so go ahead.
Yeah, I've been reading the mail and kind of fiddling with some other things, but my ears started ringing, so different types of batteries have what's called a source impedance.
Me too.
You're going to get so many watt hours out of it, but depending on the source impedance, you may be able to pull more amps out of the battery.
Yep.
As in like the cold cranking amps you get rated for on your lead acid batteries.
Yep.
And lead acid batteries have a certain source impedance, NiCads, nickel metal hydrides, and it turns out that one of the best ones are these LiPos, the lithium polymer batteries.
Yep.
We're using them on radio-controlled airplanes and so forth, and the current output of them is phenomenal. They have a very low source impedance, and that's where you're getting that quick surge. So basically, if you're using a radio that's only going to pull like a couple amps or something like that, if you've got a 10 ampere hour battery, you're not going to see the difference between lead acid or NiCad or nickel metal hydride or LiPo, but when you start needing a quick
demand on
that LiPo is going to shine.
Yep. Well said, Jim. Well said. And yeah, it all goes back to actually the chemistry of the battery and how fast electrons can be exchanged out of storage, basically, in the battery. And you know, the chemistry of that battery dictates what the capacity limiting effect of that is. So well said. All right, let's just take a pause here, do an opportunity for check-ins, then we're going to roll back through the top of the list. And before we do, I have something I want to say about the cactus, but we'll get back to that momentarily. KD2IIN Net Control, looking for check-ins. Any further check-ins, please call now. All right, no further check-ins recognized at this time. I'm going to scroll back into the comments here quickly in the chat. Let's see. Christmas cactus requires at least 12 hours of darkness at night in order to encourage bud development. And then further on that statement, 8 days of 16 hours of dark and 8 hours of light each day. Wherever the plant is placed, do not turn the lights on at night, even for a short period of time, says Mr. Google. And of course, you could correlate this to something like hemp or cannabis, very similar flowering requirement. Basically, anything natural light-wise, as long as you're not disrupting it with artificial lighting, they should flower. So, Bill, in regards to that, you should put your Christmas cactus in, in a window where it will get natural light outside and not be exposed to any light at night. That's probably what is preventing or limiting it from flowering. That said, let's roll back to the top list to KD2TQS. Ken.
Always seeking to come with a balanced or integrated perspective. Platypus is also hunt with a form of electric location. Similar to how a shark will hunt electric changes in water and knows how to hunt. So you hook the platypus up to a LiPo battery, would their glowing in the dark increase their hunting abilities or decrease them? Just sort of wondering. That's that.
Very good question. I have no idea. My guess is, given the battery is DC, and if they're doing electrolocation, they're probably using some sort of a frequency to assist in that, that the battery probably wouldn't do them any good and might, if anything, reduce the efficacy. But I guess we'll pose that question around the net as we go down. KD2UEN, Bill, you're up.
So it sounds like we'll have to use one of them on a fox hunt coming up there with OMARC. Sounds a very interesting question. I'm sure Jim's going to be the only one who can answer that question.
Blow or blow?
How about it? Back to you, Nat.
All right, very good. We're going to roll on down to Rob, W2RWS.
No, nothing further. Just listening in. Thanks. Oh, and like my Christmas cactus. Yeah, you know, it was in the New York City window. They got tons of street light, so it wasn't total darkness, I can tell you that. And it did fine.
I have another comment about
Anyway.
that. All right. Well, that's actually an excellent comment for you to bring up, because that light would have to be strong enough to affect cell division, and that's when it really affects the hormones of the plants. And really, that whole flowering concept, no matter what the plant, is really based on a hormone interaction inside the plant. So if it was in the window in New York City, it might seem light enough to to affect your eyes and seem bright, but it might be just dim enough not to affect mitosis or cell division, and consequently not affect the hormone production in the plant, which would shift it over to flowering. So just something to consider, and another level of detail to drill down on. All right, we're going to turn it back over to Jim, K2BHM. Elaborate at will.
You got about 3 days. Oh, there's so many topics just got opened up here. Wow. Okay.
No idea, Stone.
Batteries.
Sorry.
Okay. Each has their own characteristics. We already established that they can generate a certain amount of current, but they also have other properties too, like NiCads take on a memory, like you were mentioning. Lead acid doesn't like to be brought down below a certain level.
Yep.
Otherwise, they kind of don't recover.
Won't take the charge back.
And you don't want to charge them too heavily, or you warp the plates and they short out. The LiPo batteries, which are the favorites now, are very sensitive. They need computers monitoring the discharge and the charge rate. Otherwise, they will self-destruct and go off like a railroad flare or whatever. They've been known to burn houses down. So
Yep.
that's one topic.
Seen that. All right, very good. Well, I'm going to add to that. I do have a comment here in the chat from YTFP Chris. He says, can't deplete lithium all the way, but does have a memory. I usually put my cutoff at 3.7 battery at 3.2. They charge up to about 4.2. And I have a question here in the chat from Stoned Hobbit asking what would make a light bulb turn blue when it blows out? Why would the bulb be blue? So I'll pose that question as we go back around rotation. But first, let's take a pause and see if there's any further check-ins. This is KD2IIN Net Control, the Sunday Night All Things Natural Net. If there are any further check-ins, please call now. No further check-ins recognized at this time. We'll go back to the top of the list. KD2 TQS. Ken?
KD2 TQS has 2 comments, both coming from the photography perspective. Rob will love it. Look it up very quickly. Take New York City light. Look up inverse square law.
Yes.
Anything that radiates will decrease the power of the field at a ratio of the inverse of the square.
Yes.
Basically, simple version on that. If you move 10 feet away from a light source,
Double the distance, quarter the power.
What is 1/2 the square where it was before?
Oh,
So
sorry,
20
Stone
feet
Hobbit.
away, now basically quadruples the drop in the field.
I thought you were stoned.
Street light way down below you,
Sorry.
20, 30 feet away from you, will have minimal light intensity going up. So you can look that one up, Rob, if you want.
I thought you were stoned.
Pertaining to the light bulb, go back to the old flash bulb days. One of the biggest things that it depends with, all of those would turn blue when they popped off. Depends the coating that they put on the inside of the bulb. Is it a clear bulb, or is it a soft white bulb where they actually paint or coat the inside of the lining? That stuff is flammable. When the bulb goes off, it actually sparks it, or the old flash bulb, it would pop it and then explode it. And that oxidation through the explosion, it will change the color of the inside of the light bulb. So that's one of the reasons for that. That's it.
Excellent, Ken. Always appreciate your technical mind. You always bring such awesome content here. Yeah, very good point. And that inverse square law is something we use in agriculture if we're using supplemental lighting. That's a very, very, very important factor in making sure your supplemental lighting has any real effect on your plants and your plant growth. And that's why I mentioned the mitosis, because it comes down to whether or not you got enough intensity for cell division, and then how much intensity do you have, because you need to support photosynthesis. And if you compare light sources, like even a high pressure sodium light putting out, say 450,000 lumens, you compare that to the sun, not 450,000, 43,000 lumens, you compare that to the sun up at 100,000 plus on a bright day. There's a massive, massive difference in the energy available for cell division. So very important point. I'm glad you brought that up. Let's roll on down to KD2UEN. Bill.
Yeah, I'm just in awe with all the information tonight. I'm learning some good stuff here. So thank you for the information on the Christmas cactus. And we'll definitely use caution with our lighting around the house. We'd like to see it bloom.
Good call, YT.
Zina's worked hard on this one. So, anyway, back to you, Net. KD2UEN will be outside.
All right, very good, Bill. Glad you joined us, and glad we could shine some light on the subject, so to speak. All right, let's roll on down to W2RWS. Rob.
Oh my God, I actually need some help on this. I went to Williams to get a bug spray. Now you're going to ask me what it is. It said garden on it, general purpose insecticide. I was looking to on a pencil cactus I had for years. It had a white fungus on it, a white something or other, mealy bugs. Not quite sure what it was. It was a white powder. So I sprayed the crap out of it several times, and then did another round at the morning. The next day, 20-30% of the cactus fell apart. So obviously we got a reaction here, and it was not suitable. What's that all about?
Not knowing what the chemical content in whatever you used was. Backing up to that, I have a comment here in chat. Could be powdery mildew. That's a possibility from YTFP Chris. My thought was it could even be white flies. They tend to look a lot. They have a very powdery larvae that they leave, and they're a very powdery sort of insect. I would suspect something more like white flies than powdery mildew inside, but I don't know for sure. In the future, try to avoid using pesticides. Anything that you do that will kill one thing in the system has negative effects on the entire rest of the system. These pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides are often labeled as safe, but they are endocrine disruptors, and they have long-term negative effects on all plants, animals, and humans, as well as soil biology. So that's my 2 cents on it, but I'll put it back to you for further comment or question.
Well, I'll catch you in the next round. I'll go get it and see what it is. I was realizing I probably needed the soap to spray on there. I tried dishwashing detergent in a pinch because I didn't know what else I could do. I didn't have much in the house. That was
me too,
not effective for the long term. I did have a little bit of results with it. But you know what? I'll go get it and I'll tell you what it is. Now that's interesting. So I probably should have put what's that oil stuff that you need to spray on it?
I assume you're referring to neem oil?
Yeah, that's it. So I probably should have used that because that would smother the little suckers.
Yeah, it might have. And on the soap thing, you got to be really careful with soaps. You got to remember those are very high pH, and if you take the pH of the leaf surface out, you can really do a lot of negative effect on the plant as well. But grab that bottle. I'll be curious to hear what's in it, and we can have a little better elaboration on it, maybe if I have knowledge in that particular area. Anyway, fantastic. Let's roll on down to K2BHM. Jim?
Yeah, okay. Getting back to
And I will comment on that, Chris,
again,
when I get a chance.
the light bulbs and so forth.
Powdery mildew, yeah.
Different materials, different atoms, electrons have certain particular orbits, and if you impart energy on them and excite them to a higher level orbit,
to another orbit, yep.
When they are relaxed and come back down, they emit
give off energy.
And sometimes that energy is in the
form of photons.
And those photons could be infrared or ultraviolet or red or green or blue or whatever. And some things like neon, there is a predominant orange
hue to
color to that.
Yep.
In ultraviolet, in mercury, it's ultraviolet.
Yep.
And in the case of a mercury vapor lamp,
yep.
they put phosphor in there that is energized by
that.
the ultraviolet photons,
Yep.
and in turn put out photons of a white or soft white or cool white color.
Yep.
Tungsten, certainly you get a lot of infrared out of it. That's why the bulb is so hot.
So hot. Yep.
But you also get some visual, and they will put some sort of phosphor or something on the inside of the bulb to do a conversion there as well. You get a lot of, give you the soft white or the cool white version as well. You drop a second.
Always on point.
And of course, when the light bulb is out, you get tungsten oxide on the inside of the bulb from the tungsten filament disintegrating,
Yep.
and it is tinted or colored by whatever phosphor they put inside
Yep.
the envelope to
So that's probably what your
tint or
answer
color
is,
the light
Stone
coming
Hobbit.
off the tungsten filament in the first place. So, anyhow, that was the 10-cent version. There's a lot more physics to it than that.
Yeah, that is definitely the 10-cent version, but excellent. You really covered a lot of those points about different lighting types and phosphorescence and photons and energy spectrum. Yeah, fantastic, Jim. Thank you. And I have a comment back from Stone Hobbit in the chat saying thank you for elaborating on that. Let's see. We'll do one last opportunity for check-ins here. And before I do, I got a comment. Well, let me make sure Rob's back before I read that. Yeah, let's do a last opportunity for check-ins. This is KD2 and Net Control for the Sunday Night All Things Natural Net, looking for any further check-ins. Okay, I heard the beginning of a November in there, but I don't think you have your PL tones set correctly as you dropped out as soon as my signal dropped out. So to get into the 146.805 repeater, it's 146.805 with a negative shift of 600 kilohertz and a PL tone of 103.5. Again, the PL tone is 103.5. And we'll give you another opportunity shortly. Actually, I'll give you one more chance now. Go ahead and try again if you want.
November Golf 2 Bravo, Steve and Denny.
November Delta 2 Bravo. All right, November Delta 2 Bravo, Steve in Denning. Welcome to the Sunday Night All Things Natural Net.
Very good, thank you. It's the November Golf 2 Bravo, NG2.
Golf.
One comment on the Christmas cactus. I don't know what they watered them. Watered them not a lot of water. And then
Hi,
you
Robert.
drown them. Do that pretty late. Encourage the flowers. Then get by the flower 4 or 5, 6 times a year like that. No negative effects.
Okay, Steve, we got bits and pieces of that. I did correct your call sign, November Golf 2 Bravo. I don't know if you could maybe move to a little bit better location and try again. You were in and out and barely audible at points. I did catch that you were able to flower your cactus several times a year. So maybe just try one more time. Alright, I guess we'll try and pick you up in the next rotation. Maybe you'll be able to move to a better location. All right, with that, we'll roll back to the top list. KD2, TQS, Ken.
TQS. Nothing serious further. Go back to now.
All right, very good. And we'll roll on down to KD2, UEN, Bill. Or did you check out?
Yeah, I caught some of what Steve was talking about there, less water and like, I think might be the help and keep the water, the moisture down on it. I think that's what he said. Anyway, we'll put it back to you. CJ, we're getting a lot of interference again here. Must be this storm coming back in.
All right, very good, Bill. Yeah, the gist of it that I seemed to catch out of that was, yeah, less water, and he was able to get it as a flower several times a year doing that. So something to keep in mind. All right, let's roll on down to Rob, W2RWS. What'd you find for us, Rob?
Well, I ran back in the house and got this thing. I don't even want to touch it now that you tell me it's that poisonous. It says for organic gardening, probably.
Okay.
Garden safe fungicide 3 garden products in one. A fungicide, insecticide, and miticide. So I figured, you know what? Sounded good to me at the time.
Oof.
For use on roses, flowers, houseplants, ornamental trees and shrubs, fruit and vegetables. I'll tell you what's in it.
Yeah, that's the
I'm
key.
going to take my glasses off. Give me a second. Active ingredient. I'll be damned if I could read this. Hang on a second.
They made it small. They don't want you to really know.
Something extract of neem oil. Huh.
Ah. Yep.
Clarified hydroponic extract of neem oil. How about that? It is neem oil.
Ah, okay. Well, as far as human exposure, that is relatively benign. But I should mention, for anyone who is trying to have a baby, I would not expose yourself to neem oil. It's actually a fantastic birth control method. I won't go into the details of that, but just something to be aware of. Yeah, even the organic pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides do have endocrine disrupting effects. That's why they're effective. Most of those pesticides basically act on the reproductive life cycle of the insects you're trying to beat, and so that's why they tie into that. And if you know anything about endocrine systems, our endocrine systems are very, very, very sensitive. I'll just give you a real basic rundown on that. So if you took every man on the planet and you put all of their hormones together in a pile, you'd have about 70 pounds. And if you took every woman in the planet and you put all of their hormones together in a pile, you'd have about 7 pounds. So maybe this will help people to understand why women seem to have so many more problems with our food supply and some of the other chemicals that they're exposed to in our society today. They are much more sensitive to those chemicals due to their much less level. But also that gives you an idea of just how small an amount of these compounds it takes. And let's keep in mind that the human body and plants and soils are all interactive ecosystems, and so if you do one thing to the system, you change the dynamics of the entire system. Just something to keep in mind. So the neem oil is not a big deal, and I did want to read a comment before we move down the list here from YTFP Chris. And he said, if it was powdery mildew, which we haven't confirmed or denied yet, said maybe wash it down with a mix of skim milk mixed with water and rinse the plant off while laying it horizontal and not let the liquid hit the soil to avoid washing the insecticide into the dirt. So that may be one way to do it. I don't know, I hope that provides some insight. And I guess what I'll do is put it back to you quickly in case you have a further question or comment. Yeah.
So skim milk
Could
and
be.
water and spray it and then rinse it off later? Or rinse it off immediately?
Yep. Yeah, rinse it off immediately. And then he has another question here too. It says neem oil is sold as an extract. It usually has to be diluted. Wonder if that could be it. Directions on the bottle?
It was a spray bottle, so I just sprayed it. I don't think it needs to be diluted.
Probably
but
not.
there's this dictionary on the back you got to pull off and open up.
Oh, yeah.
I
Those are
just
fun.
assumed it's a spray bottle. You just spray it on.
Okay, yeah, if they come in a spray bottle, they usually are spray ready. But definitely double check the directions, make sure you're not just giving it too much concentration. Because, I got a comment here from YTFP. Mr. Google says use neem at night because it can cause plants to sunburn. Yes, that's called phytotoxicity. So even on the organic stuff, and actually even on the foliar feeds which I use, which don't have any pesticides or endocrine disruptors in them, you have to apply those at night to avoid phytotoxicity or leaf toxicity. So there's a number of factors here that you need to consider, and of course they don't put all that on the label necessarily, but I'll bet if you open that booklet they go into a little more detail on it, along with a number of warnings.
That's probably it, because I did it in the morning.
Oh.
Figured I'd get my chores done
Good call,
in the morning,
YT.
and I threw it back on the windowsill. So there you go.
Yep, that'll do it. So yeah, don't expose them to sunlight. Anytime you do anything like that to a plant, let it have the overnight to dry off and sort of adjust before it's exposed to light again. So hopefully that'll help you solve that issue. Let's roll on down the list here to K2BHM. Jim. Hey, Marie. How are you?
Thanks, CJ. K2BHM here. Well, I can't add anything to that
Oh, that is
conversation,
that issue.
but I can add one more to the conversation on light. You're familiar with neon signs where you've got a glass tube and it goes around and swirls and makes up the letters and designs and stuff like that, and at each end of the tube it makes a quick little U-turn for the electrode to get the current into the tube.
Glad to hear it, Marie.
Well, if you take a straight tube and near each end you put a electrode off to the side,
Yep.
but basically you have a straight light path through the tube,
Yep.
and you put what's called a Brewster window on each end, and you fill the tube with neon and helium.
Don't glow.
One window is 100% reflective, and the other window is 90% reflective.
Ah.
And you hit it with current, so now the light can bounce off of one, and a little bit goes out the other. You set up a basically a bandpass filter, or like what we would consider in RF world with the repeater, a tuned resonant cavity. And now you have a laser. Totally different animal, pure homogeneous light, all the same phase, frequency, and in unison. And that was the origin of the laser back 50 years ago. K2BHM.
Fantastic, Robert. Fantastic. We'll get to that. All right. Very interesting description, Jim. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, that whole light physics thing is just fascinating. Everything from lasers to co-phased light to the double slit experiment and on down the list. That's just an area that I continue to study and continue to be fascinated with. So thank you for sharing that. Let's go back down and see if Steve found a little bit better location to get in on NG2B. Are you there?
Yeah, you got it completely wrong. Better copy this time around?
First part of your transmission was very staticky. The second part was a little bit better. So whatever that last spot was, that's the sweet spot.
Soak it pretty good, put it in the water a couple of days, and that'll spread it into flowers.
Okay, you were still quite staticky there, but we got your message this time. You got to soak it for a few days and then bring it out and flower it. Much like growing mushrooms. Very interesting. Thank you for contributing that. I'm sorry your signal's so tough tonight, but I'm glad that you joined the net, and I really appreciate you sharing that information with us. I'll put it back to you for a final comment, and then we're going to run back fast through the list here, and then I got to close out because I got other things to do tonight. So back to NG2B.
Okay, very good. Yeah, phase 7-3, I'm going to listen out. Have a good evening, everybody. Thank you.
All right, fantastic. Thanks for joining and thanks for the information. All right, we're going to do a hot round back through the list here. KD2 TQS, you're up.
Apply the pesticide at night using the glow from the stem because the sun coming off the UV frequency is not being laser. That's
All right, very good. You were a little staticky there, but I think we got the gist of what you were saying. Let's roll on down to KD2 UEN, Bill. That's correct. Soak it for, I think he said, a couple of hours to a couple of days, and then set it out and let it grow and let it dry back out. And as it dries out, apparently that will stimulate the flowering cycle. Also keep in mind the lighting factor there. At least those two factors should be involved. Next up, laser tag. Bit in the noise there tonight, Bill, but I think we got the gist of it. I think you were saying thank you very much. So yes, thank you to everyone who chipped in on that information, and I hope you have a great evening. Let's roll on down to W2 RWS, Rob.
I have two gorgeous jade plants. Number one, I can't get the droppings of the petal to sprout.
What plants?
I have that growth hormone. I don't want to overdo it with that stuff. It's maybe 20% sprouting, and the rest I just can't get to sprout. I'm just wondering if you have any advice on that. And then secondly, is there a grow light that's an LED low power consumption? Grow light I can use, especially for these jade plants, because I brought them in because of the cold weather, and so they're not going to get any sort of indirect sunlight.
Okay, jade plant. Yeah, I didn't catch the type. You said it first. I don't know very much about those, but you probably could do a quick Google and find some pretty good information on that. I know they prefer drier soils. That's about all I know about them. As far as LED lighting, yes, there are definitely lots of LED lighting options. I would definitely do your research on that. Look at reviews, look at light intensity, and look at a term called PAR, P-A-R. I think it's photon effective radiation, as it relates to LEDs, because they're much, much, much different than high-intensity discharge lighting as far as photons and effective photons for plant growth. Many of them are very targeted to the red and blue spectrum, which can be beneficial. This is a really complex subject, but I hope those pointers will help point you in the right direction. And I don't know if you have my email or not, but if you do, you can always contact me for more information through that. All right, let's roll on down to Jim, K2BHM.
Well, I didn't have much on the topics tonight, but hopefully I shed some light on the subjects. K2BHM.
All right, very good, Jim. Thanks for sharing the information you did. Always appreciate it, and we'll wish you a good evening, and look forward to talking to you again soon. And I'll just give NG2B one last chance if he's still around and wants to do one last chime in. Whiskey Alpha 2, Mike Juliet, Mike. Alright, looks like that's a no, and I gotta close this net out quick. This is KD2IIN Net Control for the Sunday Night All Things Natural Net. This has been a session of the Sunday Night All Things Natural Net, sponsored by the Overlook Mountain Amateur Radio Club, located in beautiful Ulster County, New York. If you want to know more about our club, you can always visit our website at www.omarcclub.org. That's whiskey. Mike Alpha Romeo Charlie Lima Uniform Bravo Oscar Romeo Golf. Don't forget, we have a few other nets on the repeater here. 8:35 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. daily is the daily check-in net. Thursday nights at 8 p.m. K2JLV runs the Thursday night net, which is much more related to amateur radio and technical aspects, including computers, antenna tuning, HF, and so much more. Check those out. Thanks for joining the Sunday Night All Things Natural Net. I wish you all a good evening. This is KD2IIN returning this net to your regular amateur use, and this frequency is back in regular amateur use. And this session is officially closed. KD2IIN will be signing clear. 7-3, everyone. Thank you. And that is that. He's a bright guy. He is a bright guy. All right, people. I'll see you guys in the portal. Hopefully.
I went to NCI.
Oh, boy. Hopefully, I'll see you guys in the portal. I don't know. I got a lot going on tonight, but thanks everyone for coming along for the ride, and appreciate it. With that, I'll send you to the break. Got a lot going on tonight.